Hello and welcome to Money Tips. Having a great day, I hope. What are the property hotspots in London and in the country really this year in the UK? Now we know that property has been booming this year with all of the stamp duty holidays and all of the rush, I guess, for people to perhaps get out of the city and find a bigger house with more space, perhaps a space for a home office because they're now working from home. So we know that prices in some areas have been booming in the last year, which has in effect been the year when we had the worst recession in our history, when the economy bombed, especially last year. The economy just went down by 10%. Now we're bouncing back this year, which was good news, and we expect to see a 7% rise in the economy. And of course we have cheap borrowing, record low interest rates. So I mean you can get mortgages now fixed at 1%. You know, it's just incredible. You know, if you think 1% a mortgage, you know, the interest on £100,000 mortgage would be £1,000 a year, £80 a month. You know, think of the interest on a million, you know, 10,000 a year, if I got that right. I mean, it is incredible how interest rates are so low when I've seen interest rates at 16.25%, maybe a little bit more for some people in certain mortgages, which was a killer. And that makes a huge amount of difference to the amount of, you know, to the size of property you can buy, because clearly if you can borrow money at such record low interest rates, then you can obviously buy a much larger property, right? You know, just based on your affordability alone, the lender will give you more money if interest rates are low. So which boroughs are the hot spots? Well, the London boroughs of Camden and Barnet top the 2021 sales hotspot table. Yeah, and I don't know if you know those boroughs, but in London, the top sales hotspot, this is based on properties sold, were the London boroughs of Camden and Barnet. Now, you might know Camden Market. You might have heard of Camden Market, Camden Town. Yeah, but Camden is quite a big borough. Camden spreads from, you know, King's Cross, you know, right up to Hampstead, and then borders with Barnet when you get up to sort of Hampstead, Golders Green area, and certain, you know, it goes right up into areas, and then you're into sort of Barnet, which then Barnet goes from you know, parts of where it borders on parts of Camden with Hampstead and Brent Cross and that sort of thing. It goes right up then to Barnet, which is near the M25. So it's a huge borough as well, and you encompasses areas like Colindale, Edgware, Hendon, parts of Finchley. You know, so these are quite big boroughs. So it's understandable why they may have had the most sales. They're quite expensive boroughs as well. Camden is quite a hot spot. You've seen companies like Google go into King's Cross, and that whole regeneration that took place around King's Cross, those old industrial buildings, have created a sort of a hub there, a technology hub, and that's spread out to Camden Town, and you know, of course Camden then goes on to, you know, really nice areas, Primrose Hill, Regent's Park, and then it borders on, when it gets to St John's Wood, then you're into Westminster. So just a little bit of history about these London boroughs. In London, areas are divided into boroughs, and they have their own borough council, their own borough mayor and councillors and that sort of thing, and they can make a lot of their own rules, like planning decisions and buildings and schools and roads and that sort of thing. So these boroughs are huge, you know, financial boroughs, if you like, as well, when you think of the rates and the taxes they draw in from all the properties. So look, in the UK, we saw around £70 billion worth of property just snapped up in this year, in this rush to beat the stamp duty holiday, which is ended in June. And you know, we saw this rush, but in just the London area alone, in these London postcodes of Camden and Barnet, we saw that. I'm just going to go through the figures now, and this comes from a company called Mortgage Solutions, and they analysed the properties sold in England and Wales, and then we looked at the boroughs which had the most sales. So higher property prices in the capital obviously led the table because, no matter how many properties you sell in say Newcastle, it's unlikely they're going to reach a level of monetary value of the properties sold in a London borough, okay, because the prices are higher to start with. I mean, you're not going to get much in Camden, a house in Camden for much less than £1 million, and flats would be £500,000 in general. I'm just generalising here. But property sales in Camden and Barnet alone were £262 million. Merton and Wandsworth, that's places like Wimbledon, the Wimbledon tennis, hitting 248 million. Kensington and Chelsea came in only fifth with 225 million. And then the list goes on from there. It doesn't really matter which area you're talking about. If the prices are very high to start with, then and people are buying in those areas because they're popular areas. I mean, these areas are quite close to town. Kensington and Chelsea, obviously, you have properties, in the tens and even hundreds of millions. So it's not surprising they are up in the list. But I expect they would have a smaller amount of properties sold than somewhere like Barnet and Camden. And then outside of the capital, the only one to hit the top 10 was Brighton and Hove. Brighton is the ever popular seaside town, quite a trendy place. You can get to Brighton from London Victoria on a train in about an hour, so it's not that far. It's one of the nearer seaside resorts to the capital. Always been a popular area, and it's become very sort of trendy in the last few years. So when you go down there, it's quite trendy bars. It's certainly not like some of the rundown old Victorian seaside towns that you see, and it's a popular place to live, Brighton and Hove. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see that. £200 million worth of homes were sold in Brighton, and that doesn't surprise me. And then we see areas like Maidenhead, Dorset. Now Dorset's much further out. It's way out in the countryside. Down, you talk about areas like Bournemouth, Lyme Regis, and lots of nice seaside towns there in Dorset. But also, if you go in a bit, there's also some very, very nice towns. I think Dorchester. It's a beautiful area, Dorset, one of the beauty spots of England. But I guess in the past it would have been considered a little bit too far for a commute. You might be looking at a couple of hours on a train, maybe a bit less, but it's quite a trek to get in, and quite expensive if you're commuting into town. It'd be quite tiring on you if you travelled in from Dorset every day to work. But now, of course, with the ability to work from home, Dorset is not that far. If you might have to come into the office once a week. And then the New Forest was on the list. New Forest, again, a beautiful area. It's just one of those conservation, outstanding areas. I'm surprised to see so many properties sold there because there's not a lot of property in the New Forest, compared to a city. Manchester did well. Southend, again, that's another seaside town where maybe people are thinking, well, I'll just move out into Essex, move further out to get some sea air. Ever popular Bath, and Bath is another beautiful area of the country. Horsham, RH12 postcodes. It's just further evidence that buyers are looking for more space. And also remember, England is a beautiful country. There's many, many beauty spots in England, many, many lovely places to live. It's not just all about the capital, but then with all the jobs, or most of the jobs being in the capital, particularly in the city and places like that, and the top jobs being in the capital, people were reluctant to move out too far. That's not to say that people have not been commuting into London for years. If you think of London as a ring, then you've got trains coming in, like a spider's web of trains coming in from the outer rings into London, with big main stations like Victoria, Charing Cross, Paddington, King's Cross, St Pancras, and Liverpool Street to the east, Paddington to the west. All of these trains coming in, millions of people coming into the capital to work every day. If you just look at the videos of it, it's incredible. So people have been commuting in from commuter belts like Surrey, Sussex and Essex, Hertfordshire for years. It's nothing new. But now people are definitely sort of trying to get out a bit further. And I don't know whether, I see properties in London coming down a little bit, particularly flats, maybe not houses. But I think London will recover. London will always reinvent itself. And maybe, people might say, well, I like the idea of living in London anyway. I don't want to live on a farm somewhere. I don't want to live 10 miles from a nearest town, have to drive to, Tesco's 20 miles, or, just have one village pub which may close down in a year. A lot of people don't like that, but maybe if you've got a young family, you want a better life for your children, you might want quieter schools, less crime and that sort of thing. But a lot of people, single people, young people, might not want that lifestyle. So maybe that's why places like Camden and Barnet also have wide appeal, because you're still a tube ride into central London, but you're in a suburb which is a bit quieter, more space, bigger parks, better schools perhaps. Barnet and parts of Camden and Hampstead have very, very good state schools. So there's all sorts of reasons for this. And it doesn't mean that, property market in London is dying. I think far from it. Now, I asked the other day in another post, and I put a link up to that, is the property market about to crash? Well, you've got to take a view on that. Yes, the stamp duty holiday has ended, but it doesn't necessarily mean the property market is about to crash. There's still a shortage of property, and yes, there might be a dip, and I think there will be a downturn because prices are at record highs, but I wouldn't necessarily think it's going to be a crash unless we have some worldwide event like a major stock market crash, a major crisis again. Then property could fall as well. So we don't know. Nobody really knows when the stock market is going to peak or when the property market is going to peak. But it does peak at some stage, and it always comes back for a correction. Property is unaffordable for many first-time buyers at the moment, unless they've got parental help from the bank of mum and dad. So that is a factor. When you think you might need 15 times the average salary to buy in a place like St Albans, then you think, well, how can people afford it? And that was a year ago, before prices went up. Now, the thing is about investing in property, if you're looking at it from an investment point of view, then yes, you've got to be cautious, but you make your money at the time you buy. And professional property investors really make their money whether the market is going up, down or flat. They'll still have a strategy that can make money from property. And if you'd like to learn more about this and more about how to make money from property, why not join an up-and-coming Property Revolution Summit? This is run by some friends of mine who are, they've got all the facilities there to train you live and, give you a live event and really go through everything that you would want to know about becoming a property investor. And this is learning from scratch. A lot of people think you need money to get in property. Not true. There are many strategies which require no money down, strategies where you can control properties, and strategies where you can buy property using none of your own money. So check out that. Click on the link below if you're interested in joining. I certainly recommend you do that before you rush out and buy a property just because someone says, well, this is the next hotspot area, buy here. No, go and learn about how to be a property investor first, and then decide whether it's for you or not. So thanks for listening, and I hope you all have a great day, and I will speak to you soon. Thanks a lot.